In this video, we're going to show you how to install the brake caliper on your Nissan Versa, located on the left front side of your vehicle. Process for this is the same as the right front. Using a pry tool, you want to go ahead and remove our hubcap here. Go between the wheel and the cap and gently pry out. Work your way around. Pop that off and set it aside. Once you have that off, you can use a 22mm socket with your impact gun. Loosen and remove the lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, remove the wheel and set it aside. Now that we have our wheel off, we want to go ahead and grab this and we're going to rotate it this way here. We want to go ahead and gain access to the equipment and hardware on the back side of our caliper and caliper bracket. Let's go ahead and tear down our caliper and bracket assembly. I'm going to use a 14mm socket. I'm going to remove these two bolts. We have our bracket here with our slider pins. What I'm going to do is I'm going to peel back the boot, slide our pin out. Now when we pull this out, there's going to be one with the rubber damper on it here. That is going to go on this side here. This side here probably won't have it. On this back slider pin here, I'm going to use my pocket screwdriver. Go ahead and assist in pulling that rubber boot off. Be careful not to puncture that boot, but sometimes they can be buggers to get off. Slide that off. The reason why we do this here is that, as you can see, there's a limited amount of grease. It's probably sufficient for doing the job, but we like to go ahead and put a little bit more on. Now you want to make sure that you don't put too much on, because you can actually cause too much resistance and the grease will cause this pin to push out. Reinsert, push it in, take the air out, and there we go. What we're basically doing is adding a little bit more lubrication to these here. You can see it's down on the end, but nothing on the top half. Reinsert. Give that a wipe down. The bracket is ready to go. Remove the two bolts from our caliper itself. And then we have our bolt here. We're going to pull this out. Now this here is our banjo bolt. This is where the hydraulic line is going to get bolted to. When we unthread this, you're going to find two copper washers. Take one off, push the other one down. When we install this onto the vehicle, this goes through the connection. You're going to put this on the other side and then thread it into the caliper itself. Let's go ahead and do that. Now our flex line right here has an 11mm bolt going through into our caliper. We're going to loosen this, take it out, remove the two copper washers. Then we're going to install the new banjo bolt with the new copper washers, install it into our caliper, snug it down, and then we're going to hang this up out of the way. Now we do have a drain bucket underneath to catch any residual brake fluid that's going to be coming out. Pull that bolt, remove the copper washers. If they don't pop off, you can grab a pocket screwdriver. Make sure you pop those off. We have our new caliper here. Put your bolt through with the copper washer. Install the other copper washer. Grab that caliper. Install this. Get that bolt started on there. And once you have that started by hand, you can go ahead and snug that down. Now don't let this hang. You will now want to go ahead and grab a securing strap or an anchoring hook like this here. You're going to hook it through and then hang it from the strut. You can grab a towel or a rag, wipe down that caliper and that hose. At this point, let's go ahead and remove our caliper bracket and caliper from the vehicle. Using our 14mm socket here, we want to go ahead and remove the two caliper bolts. Now there is going to be residual brake fluid in the caliper, so when you drop this down, you want to be cautious where you position that. If you tip it, fluid is going to come out. Let it drain out a bit. You can flip it back over, set it on the bench. Let's remove the two big bolts holding the caliper bracket. Be 17mm socket. Now you want to be careful when removing this here. Once you pull this caliper bracket off, the brake rotor will be loose, so you want to be careful not to drop that. Go ahead and spin that bolt out, and then we'll grab that bracket and slide this off. We want to go ahead and remove our brake pads. If you're going to be reusing the brake pads, let's pull those off. If you have new pads, you can go ahead and discard this bracket. Take your brake caliper bracket, slide that over. Install either one of the bolts. I'm choosing to go with the upper bolt first. Get that bolt started a few threads. Do the same for the bottom one now. Tighten those down. Now we want to go ahead and pop our brake pads out of the unit itself. Now you want to pay attention to what pad came out of what side. So on this particular vehicle, they have the squeak tab on the outside of the vehicle, on the facing upward side. So you want to make sure that the squeak tabs are on the upper side of the pad when inserting these here. Go ahead and pop out the brake pad on the other side. Just tap that loose. We do want to make sure that we can clean up the back side of our brake pads here. Just going to wipe them down with a little bit of solvent. Don't spray the brake pad. Spray some solvent on a rag and wipe that down. Now, there's going to be grooves on either side, or notches on the top here on either side. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on my fingertip and just put a little bit inside there. Be careful not to get any on the brake rotor. Now at this point, we have our brake sliders here. We want to go ahead and put the notch part facing down with this lip on the bottom, and it presses right in. Let's go ahead and do the same to the top. Now the top one has these little ears on it right here, sticking out. Line that up. Snap that up into place. Now these little ears on the top of these shims or sliders, these actually go inside the hole of the squeak tab. So basically you're going to insert, you're going to rotate this here and insert the pad into the notches just the way they came out. So we're going to rotate. Going to insert like so. Do the same on the other side. Now with both pads locked into place, go ahead and grab the brake caliper. Just go ahead and spin this around. Push this in. Now the sliders themselves, you might have to push those in a little bit. Now installing the caliper, you want to pay attention to these here, the slider pins. There's 2 flat sides and 2 rounded sides here. Now the flat sides are going to fit. You want to almost position these horizontal, both on the upper and bottom, the top and bottom. And they're going to line up with the notches on the caliper. With those lined up, I'm going to install the bolts. Let's go ahead and tighten those down. Now I'm just going to gently snug them. Let's go ahead and torque these down. Torque down the lower and upper caliper bolts to 32 foot-pounds. $17mm caliper bracket bolts to knuckle are going to get torqued to 62 foot-pounds. Let's torque down our flex line hose bolt to 18 foot-pounds. Go ahead and wipe that down. When the inboard portion of our brake caliper is going to be our bleeder screw, it's typically covered by a rubber cap. So you can use a little pocket screwdriver and pop that cap off. Set that aside. We're going to be reinstalling that later. And right here is a 10mm. So we're going to use our wrench. Just go ahead and loosen that. We're going to open this up. Now what's going to happen is the brake fluid is going to come down here, go into the caliper itself behind the piston, and then come out here. So at this point here, it's a little bit of a waiting game. We're going to wait for that fluid to come out. Once we see fluid, we're going to snug that down, wipe it down. We're going to pump up the brake pedal, make sure it feels good. And you can see this fluid coming out now. When that bottoms out, just give it a little bit more just to snug it. Give it a wipe down. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle, pump up the brake pedal. If the brake pedal feels spongy, at that point there, you're going to want to go ahead and start the brake bleeding process. In our case here, our brake pedal feels good. Take your rubber cap, pop this on. We're going to straighten out our wheel. We can go ahead, install the tire, and we're going to top off our brake fluid. Just to the left of your air filter box is your brake fluid reservoir. Now this cap pops up like so. There's a rubber grommet holding it, or a rubber seal. And down here, right where the seam is, there's a fill line. Okay, it's just above where the bottom and the top of the reservoir join together. There's a little high or proper fill line. So we're going to use the recommended brake fluid for this. I want to add fluid just till it comes up to that fill line. Let's go ahead and close this up, push that cap back on. At this point here, we can go ahead and hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes, and you should be good as far as our brakes go. Let's go ahead and install your wheel. Install the lug nuts. We're going to get all 4 of them started by hand. Spin those on a few threads. By doing this here and not just zipping them on with the impact gun will prevent cross-threading of the threads. With all 4 of them started, let's go ahead and snug them down. Let's torque down the lug nuts to 83 foot-pounds. Now, if you're installing your center cap or hub cap here, you want to go ahead and go around the perimeter and locate the notch for the valve stem. Locate the valve stem on the wheel. Line that up first. Once that's lined up, go ahead and gently work your way around the perimeter, locking this on. Once that's all set, you are done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.